Today, we get to talk about Tara Brach. Tara Brach is an insight meditation teacher. She's a psychologist and author and speaker. She's wonderful. I invite you to check her out. She does Wednesday night Dharma talks. These are things that she held at the Insight Meditation group in Washington, D.C., live and live streamed for years. She's done that on Facebook and YouTube, but now it's just Wednesday nights, 5 o'clock Pacific, and it's available streaming. It's about 25-minute meditation practice, and she is a very experienced meditation teacher and leader. Her practice is based in Theravada Buddhism. It's Vipassana meditation, which is clear mind or clear insight. And so in the US, Jack Kornfield, Sharon Salzberg started the insight meditation. And, they're obviously, I think they were the founders of it. But Tara, I think, is one of the most broadly known current teachers of it. Like, I think she's pretty central to insight meditation in the US. Anyhow, so she does like a 25-minute meditation. It's always very beautiful. She's very, very skilled. And then she does a 45-minute talk. And that talk is always super insightful because she's lovely. It's always full of stories and snippets. So you come out of every encounter with Tara Brach with like 2 or 3 little stories or a little snippet or a little joke that she saw, or sometimes she'll show a little cartoon or describe a little cartoon. So there's a lot of lightness, there's a lot of accessibility, there's a lot of relatedness in her teaching, which is just so beautiful. I first came across her with her book, Radical Acceptance, I don't know, 10 years ago. And I had, heard of acceptance as being important in my spiritual path, but it never hit home the way Tara made it hit home. And in her book, she is so descriptive of our opportunities to receive life as potential gifts instead of constant assaults, right? That's when we don't want to accept something, right? It's not happening the way we want it to happen. And so that's an assault on what we want to happen. And she offers this really beautiful invitation. She guides the average mind through normal thinking all the way to radical acceptance, where it's like curiosity comes to the forefront now. And willingness to meet what's happening as it is instead of how we think it should be. So that was a quantum teaching for me, and her accessibility made it super tangible. You could like feel it coming into your own life. So that's really helpful. She has a new book out called Radical Compassion. And I believe, I haven't read it yet, but I believe in it she talks about the technique that she teaches for meeting ourselves where we are, and especially in times of pain and discomfort, and whether that's pain is physical or psychological or emotional. And the technique that she teaches is called RAIN. And the R stands for recognize. Recognize I'm in pain right now. And often when we do that, we want to go watch TV or take a pill or run away. That brings us to the A in RAIN, which is acknowledge. Acknowledge that this is what's going on in the present moment for you. And that when I'm pretty sure it's acknowledge, but it could be attention. We bring our attention to it. We gift it with our attention, but that's part of acknowledge. Then the I is inquire. And I think that inquire is pretty broad. I've taken a course of hers on rain, so that's why I'm talking about it, even though I haven't read the book. And I think that she probably has evolved it and continues to evolve it. But so recognize, acknowledge, inquire. And inquire is kind of a broad piece. It's like, huh, why do I feel this way? When did this start? What might this be indicative of? I find in my personal life that puts me too much in my mind. So my inquiry is, what does it feel like? What are its characteristics? Is it changing with the breath? Is it stable? Is it so kind of trying to get acquainted with this discomfort in a new way, in a way that's not avoiding it, but actually inquiring into it. And then N in the RAIN process is nurture or nourish, but care for. Care for that part of us that is hurting with the gentle attention of our most mature aspects that can meet lovingly even our pain. And that 4-step process can very often, it doesn't necessarily change the pain, but it changes the relationship to the pain. Um, I don't know who this saying is by, but pain is inevitable, suffering is optional. And I believe that Tara's RAIN process invites us to experience pain without as much suffering. Actually, all of her teachings, all of the Buddhist teachings do. Um, so that's really beautiful. There's one more thing I want to tell you about. I'm pretty sure I told you about the live streams on Facebook and YouTube. Um, Radical acceptance and rain. Okay, so maybe that's it. But I really invite you to check her out as a teacher because her accessibility, she is so profoundly willing to be human and to expose herself as human. She's been a pretty prominent teacher for many years, but she never elevates herself outside of the very human experiences that we all have. She'll talk about losing her temper in the moment with her son, who I think is like 30 now. So I think those are some old teachings that I watched, but or being just wanting to go home when somebody's comes up to her after a process and catching herself and saying, "Really, Tara? After all these years, you're still having these fits of less acceptance or less compassion than you want to have?" The answer is yeah, really, after all these years, we have moments that we are not performing optimally. And it's not having those moments that make us a great teacher or a great being. It's meeting those moments with gentleness. It's meeting those moments with acceptance, not trying to become a flawless human, but becoming a human that can meet those flaws and allow it to open our hearts to more compassion for ourselves. And then that naturally extends into the world. And that compassion journey is never ending. And our mistakes may be never ending. And that is the nature of unfolding that we are engaged in here. And I hope you really look into her and or maybe catch one of her Dharma talks, because again, every time I have spent time reading or listening to Tara Brach, I've felt it's been time well spent. And so I can only highly recommend her in this wonderful library of beautiful beings and teachers that we're building. So thank you for being a part of that. And tarabrach.com. Cheers.